Welcome to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a terrific guest. This is a young man that has really impressed our community with both his service to the community, his presence as a dedicated family man, and his success as an incredibly successful business owner, realtor, and just an all-around great guy. So with no further ado, I bring to you our newest public servant in town, the recently elected school board member, Trent Anthony. Trent, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. So, look, I appreciate you having me on. It really is an honor to be here. I'm not just saying that. I truly feel that.
The feeling is mutual, and thank you for being here. I really appreciate you sharing your time because I know, like me, you're a busy dad who owns your own business and has two kids. And of course, on top of that, unlike me, you have public service to contend with. So you have a lot going on. I know your time is valuable, and both the viewers and I appreciate that you're sharing it with us. Why don't we kick things off with you just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Like you mentioned, I actually have three kids. Just one is
No, three. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I don't want to leave her out. She'll be angry with me.
No, but, I'm glad you did. Thanks for the correction.
Oh, absolutely. I do. I have a 21-year-old. I have a 21-year-old daughter. My son is 13. I have my youngest daughter just turned 10. I have three pets as well. I have, in fact, not to be Debbie Downer, but I have a 17-and-a-half-year-old dog. And just seeing the last few days, he's not doing well, but I do have two other younger ones as well. But so I have a full home life just with all that going on.
Yeah. But what I'm hearing there is a lot of mouths to feed. So it's a good thing you are such a successful realtor because we all know the school board job won't pay the bills and feed that many mouths. So, yeah, sounds like a packed house.
It is. It is a packed house, and I do have to work hard, and I always have, and I enjoy it. And up until just recently, when Hurricane Ida hit, I worked two full-time jobs up until Hurricane Ida hit.
Oh, tell us about that. What were your two jobs?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I'm a real estate agent. I own a real estate brokerage, so I'm a broker as well. I have a great staff that works with me. I have three other agents on the staff, hoping to grab a couple more over the next year or so. It's only been open just a little shy of 2 years. And so we're growing, but one thing that we do there that's different from some of the other brokerages is I have an agent that is, she's specific to residential real estate, to leasing rather.
Oh, so, wow, that's cool.
Leases. It's a big time service to the community because a lot of real estate agents don't want to really fool with residential leases because they feel like they're not lucrative enough. But if you do many of them, it can be a good living. And she does very well. So,
but so many people are in that market. If you run the numbers, it doesn't always make sense to buy. And so that's a big, percentage of the population that you're serving that you're right, probably gets overlooked. What about your second job? What was the other job besides real estate?
My second job, I was there for 21 years. I was started as a busboy over at Morton Seafood in Madisonville, so our next town over to the east. Most people that are listening to this have probably been there a few times, and I was there for, like I said, 22 years, I think, total. And
I think I met you there about 20 years ago. Your Uncle Britt and I, as you know, were really good friends. Right. And one day he told me, let's go take a ride and see my little nephew, Trent. Of course, we're both looking up at you. Little nephew was figurative. And but yeah, you were hustling then that day. I think you were managing the place, but a lot going on. That was a busy, successful restaurant.
Right.
So that's really cool. I bet that 20 plus years of service industry experience helped a lot when you hit the campaign trail, because I know my little miniature version of that, 4 years working at Hi-Ho, was always helpful to me. And, because you just learn how to deal with people and solve problems. Do you think that was true? Did it help you a lot in this campaign you just ran?
Absolutely. Well, problem solving it's crucial there. It's a mom and pop establishment too. So it's think quickly on your feet, resolve problems quickly. The customer's always right, just like the voter is. And the voter most of the time is always right. And, because I share a lot of the same opinions with a lot of the voters. But going back to the restaurant, it is, you have to, it's not for the faint of heart, if you will. You have to be, you have to take a cursing out and a compliment within 2 minutes of one another. And so that's just not how it works.
Sometimes from the same table, right?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes you're like, man, be quiet. Don't Stop.
I know it. And many times you'd see husband and wife go in different directions coming at you.
That's right.
So it just goes that way. You mentioned the words mom and pop in describing that restaurant. And speaking of mom, I see here we have Terry Monteleon Crosby, your mother, tuning into the show. Terry, thank you for watching. Is there anything you want to say to your mom while she watches this here, Trent?
She knows how much I appreciate her already. I was there last night. And she's, well, I don't know. All my siblings say I'm the favorite child. So she was helping me out last night with something. And no, I'm very appreciative. She knows that already. I think I told her a million times I owe her a lot of things just from everything she's done throughout her life, and specifically helping me out the last few months as well.
Well, she's a master campaigner herself. You know, she certainly is the trailblazer in your family. She's been a justice of the peace for many, many years. I guess probably 20 plus years there.
Since 96.
Yeah, it's 96. Wow. Since basically we were all in high school or near that. Yeah, serving our community honorably, and she's so well liked. She's so hardworking, and that must have been a tremendous, viewpoint for you to watch her, be inspired by her. Why don't you tell us what it was like growing up in her house? You know, what did you learn from your mom over the years when you were a little tyke?
It's stuff that's not taught today like it was by her. But she was stern and strict and clean. And we were expected to, I jokingly say live-in maid, but it was all for the right reasons. You know, you take care of your home, and your kids have to have some type of responsibility. Otherwise, when they get into adulthood, they're not going to know how to do anything. But I mean, we each had our own individual chores, and mine included every day we cleaned the bathroom, but on every Saturday, it was a deep cleaning of the bathroom. And so we didn't go anywhere or do anything to those things were done. And I didn't enjoy it then, but looking back on it, it's like when I went into the military, I knew how to clean. When I was at the restaurant, I knew how to clean. I knew how to scrub things. What product took this particular stain off of something? And and so just those little things like that, you go back and appreciate it. And she was also, I'll say this, my mom is when my dad and my mom divorced. She wasn't really allowed to work when they were married, and she divorced. She had to start over, and we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And she has worked and worked. Her and my stepdad, who just passed away in January, they worked and worked and worked, and it's the picture of the American dream. Yeah. So it's just anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional a little bit.
No, as you should. And I'm sorry for your loss. Gary was such a neat guy. And you're right. He and your mom were so hardworking. You know, they're entrepreneurial in nature too, which I bet rubbed off on you as a business owner and longtime manager of other businesses, mom and pop shop, as you called it. Right. That's neat that you shared that. And like you say, it comes in handy. You mentioned the military. You look at your career now as a realtor. I bet when you have an open house, we don't have to worry about anything being messy. I bet, and if there's a problem that arises, you're there ready to clean it up, serving your clients. Right. That's cool. I want to share a few other comments because they're kind of pouring in here. You seem to be, Mr. Popularity here in the first few minutes of the show. Trish, thank you for watching the show. Trish, is that Demarsh? She says, hey. And she's got several comments here supporting you. Trish, we sure appreciate you tuning in. Miss Annette Gordon, what a great woman. Speaking of great women like your mom, Miss Annette is a Ponchatoula legend, widely respected around here, revered, really, if you will. And she calls you a great man and a good friend. Wow, that's high praise coming from really high up. Brittany Nichols Anthony here says she's so proud of you, her hubby, and you've worked hard to be where you are here today. And that's neat. Look, one thing you and I share in common is that the Lord blessed us with good wives and we married well. I'm going to give you a little bit of warning now. I probably didn't tell you this before the show, but I will ask you about kind of your love story with your wife and all. So just know later, I'm not going to ask you to remember your anniversary date or put you on the spot. But I know my viewers love it when we hear about kind of love stories and, first dates, things of that nature. So here's your fair warning on that. Your mom's going to make you tear up again. She says, love y'all. Well, Miss Terry, that feeling's mutual. And in case your rotten brother Britt's watching, please tell him hello. You know, he's one of my very best friends. One of your colleagues here and one of our former guests, one of my favorite people, Robin Taylor Abrams, says she's looking forward to working with you for the next 4 years.
Good.
And I love it here. Trisha's talking about baseboards, toilets, you name it. Y'all cleaned it.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, y'all. And then finally, the king himself, Lester Leroy Satoon, the former Strawberry King, giving you a thumbs up. Oh, speak of the devil, Britt Leon is watching, so I'm going to have to watch myself.
All right, good
yeah. Your Uncle Britt is really one of my favorite people, one of my oldest and best friends, and I won't usually say this to his face, but he is a great guy. Well, tell us a little more about family. You mentioned the kind of the strong work ethic you learned from your mom, from your stepdad, and in that house growing up with your siblings. Tell us a little bit more. I mean, eventually I know from your campaign and all the great materials we learned about you, you would end up serving in the military, going to Southeastern, going into these businesses we mentioned. But, tell us a little bit more about, the path and coming up. One thing I always love to ask people, what was your first job? I mentioned Hi-Ho, which was my first job in the 9th grade. And then I worked there 4 years and Berrytown Produce on top of that. Did you work at any local businesses or what would you do kind of coming up when you were a young buck?
I did. My first official job was at Eccles, which later became CBS. But I did some Strawberry Festival. I'd come down to the Strawberry Festival and work at Berrytown. Family knows Miss Cindy and Anthony and Lucinda Lyusa.
They were, So what a great boss Miss Cindy was, huh?
She was. They were great. And what a wonderful family. I'm just going to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of them were just great. And they know it, and they know how much we appreciate them. And they deserve their success. They're successful because they're great people and they deserve it.
Absolutely. And they're so generous. I show up to my house this week and there's 3 giant heads of cabbage, a full tray. I mean, everything from, you name it, berries to tomatoes and whatnot. And I'm like, what's going on? I call my dad. I'm like, did the tooth fairy? And he's like, yeah, his house was overflowing. Anthony had loaded him up. He said that's just a fraction. I had to unload, part to you, Bree, et cetera. But you're right. I mean, they're generous people. They, like you, worked hard for what they have. Right. And they've been a great service to our community because not only do we have this great produce stand right here in Ponchatoula, and of course now they've blown up, they're all over with, salad stations and other things going on. But they've employed so many people, at least 3 Layrisson boys ran through there. Sounds like you did too. Just a great place to work. So please tell us a little more about that.
Yeah. So, I would just work for festivals, mostly weekends and stuff like that. And then I peddled strawberries too when my stepfather raised them. We'd go to Laplace often, believe it or not. They die for strawberries down there. That's why they come here for the Strawberry Festival.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, they want their flats. Believe me, we would go into the parish buildings and the schools and office buildings, and we'd bring 100 flats and be sold out in 6 hours. Now, we didn't park on the side of the road. We went from business to business. And it was just it kind of helped my stepdad out too if he had a surplus. And it was way to make some money. I mean, you could make $1 or $2 a flat. I mean, that was big money 20 years ago.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I went on to CBS, and I was lucky enough to work with a few people from down here. Joe Triku, I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I went to high school with Joe. Yeah, wonderful woman. Yeah, coached her nephew in basketball. That's a great family.
Oh, it certainly is. I met Kit through later on down the road, and then Jeff Lesashire and Joe, I think at the time, were at least very close friends. And so I met Jeff Lesashire 20-something
You're very diplomatic. I don't think either one of them or their spouse would mind us saying they dated a little in high school. Yeah.
I got it. That's why I called. I was like, maybe that's not out in the open.
No, I like the way you said that. That was you're no wonder you got elected. That was a perfectly political way to put that. I think you were, that was good. Nicely done.
Thank you. But it was an honor to have met them. And I worked with just a couple other examples. Miss Josie Bonfiglio was there.
Oh, yeah.
North Haven.
Right.
People that I worked with 20-something years ago, and I guess I was nice to them because when I contacted some of them to vote for, they were like, "You got it." It's just they know I'm a hard worker. And if I didn't work though, I was going to get into this when I was talking about my parents. If we wanted to pay a car note or insurance, we worked. We weren't handed anything, and that was by design. And that's what I'm doing with my children too. I'm not buying them a car, they're gonna have to work for it. Now, will I help them finance it? Sure.
You're going to teach them how to earn it. Yeah, that's
right.
a great idea.
Yeah, because I feel like you have to learn the value of money early on. And
absolutely, I agree 100%. And it sounds like your wife agrees here. She's chimed in with a great comment. She says that one of the things that attracted her to you was your dedication to working to provide for your family. You know, you do anything for anybody, you know, any time of day. And she can't wait to see what you'll do for our community and parish in the next few years. I'm going to ask you a bit about that, about your plans for the next few years in the school board, because although I know you hustled and went to as many doors as you could knock on and shared your vision with a lot of people, not everybody was able to meet you in person. And I know some people watching here maybe just getting to know you and your plans for the first time. So I can promise you, Brittany, we will ask about that. But before we get there, tell us a little about that next chapter. So, you know, what I'm hearing from you so far, Trent, is you are reared with this really strong work ethic, which, you know, shapes your whole worldview and how you're raising your own kids now. But then you set off into the world and you took a brave step to enlist in the military. You know, tell us about the next chapters, military, college, etc.
Gotcha. So, college started in, right after high school. I believe it was 1990. Well, I graduated in 97, so I would have started the fall of 97. And I enlisted. Everything went well. My last semester before I went to the Army, I kind of was just getting burnt out. And so I felt like I needed to make a change. And so I'm an Army reservist. I went into the reserves. Right. And so I left in August of 99. I came back that following spring and went back to school in the fall. So that was right before 2001, of course.
Oh, wow. Right before 9/11. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Well,
so,
thank you for your service. I get a small glimpse. I didn't serve, and so therefore can never know what it's like to make that sacrifice. But I see my nephew, my godson, Colin, try to juggle these things. He's, you know, in the Army National Guard, and between military and college and now working as a police officer, it's so hard to juggle all these things, you know. I mean, and you know, as I think you're alluding to with the coming challenges of military with the terrorist stuff, there's so many stresses in those jobs, you know. It's really, it's high stakes. So what did you learn? What did you take away from serving in the Army Reserves?
Oh, well, you go in there scared and unsure, and you leave confident. To me, that's how it was. And I'll tell the story. My drill sergeants, they would say the first couple of weeks, they were like, y'all are going to love us in 9 weeks or 10 weeks, whatever it was. And everybody's thinking, yeah, right. But then your last day that you're there, the last day I was there anyway, we were all in a huddle. We were just kind of talking. It was relaxed mode. And they said, y'all remember when I told y'all were going to love this? And I was like, yeah, and I did. And so it just goes to show you can be stern and instill discipline, but they also cared for your safety, and they cared about, you know, making you grow and making you stronger. And it's like, that's what a dad does. And so
absolutely.
I mean, I'll never forget their names, their faces. I mean, so it was kind of a life lesson. You can be stern, and you can be tough, and you lead people in the right direction. And that's kind of just what I've always went by. It's kind of how I treat my son. I mean, my daughter's a little bit softer with, I think. But,
Daddy's little girl so there's a double standard there. That's okay, I think. You know, people give you a pass on that.
That's right. But I mean, still, there's still an expectation, though. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But yeah, my son, I've always been maybe a little bit tougher on. But also, you know, my daughters were great students. My son's a good student too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
My daughters they liked school. They performed well, and I think my son is more hands-on. He wants to do something with his hands. And,
that's cool.
And we'll get into the school board stuff later, but there's a lot of kids out there like him, and we got.
And it's neat that you see those differences in your own home, right? Because, you know, I think a lot of school board folks come at it with one, you know, kind of narrow vision, if you will. You know, if you raise the student of the year who was a nerdy bookworm like me, and, you know, went in law school, you look at it from a perspective that doesn't, you know, properly account for folks like your son who have other skills and, you know, deserve other education, maybe more practical training and stuff. So it's cool. It's cool that you see that. Britt has chimed back in here again to say thank you to you and Colin, who my nephew I mentioned is a good friend of his too, for your service. I know that your Uncle Britt has always been a great appreciator of the military. Of course, your grandfather Mr. Phillip, excuse me. I'm sorry, Mr. Bill. Forgive me there, Britt, for that little stumble. They both served in the military, obviously. But as I recall, your grandfather, Bill, enlisted at a very young age, maybe even fibbed about how old he was to enlist in the Marines. And a really brave guy. Of course, he and my dad worked together for decades at the sheriff's office. And we really appreciate your service. Your family goes way back with that, and I appreciate it. Folks, if you're new to the show, we are talking here to our newest school board member, Trent Anthony, and we've been talking about his background, and kind of at the point of the conversation where we're talking college, military, etc. But why don't we talk a little bit about the next chapter, entering adulthood? You mentioned how long you had worked at Morton's, and so I know we'll get into that. Maybe you can tell us how you got started there, and the busing and all that. But tell us about kind of where you went from there, and eventually we'll get to how you met your wife and all that. What came next?
Okay, so Morton's. Once I started there, I started managing just a couple of years after I started as a busboy. One of my neighbors in college, she worked there as an oyster shucker of all things.
That's cool.
And so she was like, "Hey, we're looking for busboys and help over there." And I'm like, "All right, well, I'm gonna ride with you today." So I rode with there today, and I worked that day. It was, like I said, it was kind of a place that we run it by the seat of our pants a little bit, or we did when I was there. But it's like you got to act quickly. They needed help that night. They had a warm body here, and I learned quick. And a couple of years later, I started managing, and that kind of became my full-time gig. Now, of course, we so many things changed after 2001. I was back in the military. I was in college again. I was working a full-time job, and then so my Army career, we did 9/11 happened in 2001. We had a really short deployment after that. I never went overseas. My unit was a detachment, but we were anyway.
So what was your role? What did you do in the Army? What was your job?
Yeah, I was 88 Hotel, a cargo specialist, which basically we loaded and unloaded fast sea lift ships. So big giant ships, we load them with Humvees and tanks and all that stuff, lashing down. We convoy vehicles. I later became an 88 Mike, which was a truck driver. So you got a 2.5 to 5 tons, and you pull equipment. And in our annual trainings, we mostly convoy vehicles that the military wanted to move from one spot to another. And all of that was done here in the States for the most part. And so for whatever reason, I never got called up to go overseas. And so I'm kind of like thankful for that, but also I wish I could have taken that step and done more to serve our country, of course.
Yeah.
But God wanted me here for whatever reason. And so
you answered the call. You went where they sent you, right? I mean, from what I understand, you don't always get a whole lot of say about where in the big wide world you go. Or they call them orders, not suggestions, for a reason, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Well, that's neat. So I bet when you see things like footage of these long Russian convoys in Ukraine and all the logistical problems we see on the news, you probably have a much different viewpoint than average Joe like me, because you can kind of understand what strategies ought to be, and you probably see them running awry.
That's right. And military, one thing they're very good at is it's PMCS, and it's I think it's preventative maintenance checkpoint system, maybe. But man, it's like for every hour of driving you do an hour or so of maintenance. So the military is pretty good with that, at least in where I participated that they were. So they take care of that.
At least the American military. It sounds like they have some trouble with that around the world.
That's right. They need to Russia needs to model their systems.
Yeah, they could learn a lot.
They did, actually. But.
Yeah. Well, tell us about the personal life part of that. Obviously you got all these kids, you have this beautiful wife. I gave you fair warning, so now I'm going to pop the question. How'd you meet your wife? Tell us a little about that love story.
It's oh man, I hope this doesn't get me in trouble with, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. I met her at Morton's, and I was a manager, and she was a server. So,
I'm not an employment lawyer, but I feel safe. The statute of limitations is run. So whatever may have been improper, all's good now. Plenty of time has passed, and I'm hearing a wholly consensual operation here.
Right. And it was certainly look, I would never have used my power to say, you're going to go
Of course.
goes without saying. if you know, I don't know how well you know or how many times y'all met, but if I gave her a directive, she would have turned around and walked the other way. That's how she works. She's compliant with people in leadership positions, but she's not going to be a pushover.
Sounds like my wife. She's taking 0 orders from me. But what I will say is, Brittany's just chimed in with this. She says it was truly love at first sight. Now,
it was.
How about that, folks? You don't see that every day.
No, it was. It took me about, I promise you, a few weeks in, I'm like, this is the one. You know, so and sometimes you just know.
That's really cool.
It was that way for me. And but you know, I did take just a quick story. My boss, who I love dearly, she found out, or we let her know a little while in, and I actually took a demotion. I was like, look, you know, this is fraternization. I was like, I can't. I love her. I want to be with her, and I know I can't be a manager and date an employee. So I was like, can I please take a step down, let somebody else fill my role? And that's actually what she wanted to happen. So that's what we did. So I took that demotion gladly. And later on down the road,
that pay cut was worth it, right?
It was. You know, I knew she was the one. And so later on down the road, it ended up the boss over there. She like I said, she's like she's like a sister or a mother or whatever to me still today. But she eventually, about 6 months later, she was like, all right, we tried some other people. It's not working. You can date her. Just come back to work for me as manager. And so I did. And, anyway, so the rest is history, I guess. And so she gave us her blessing. And Brittany,
it sounds like things move fast. Brittany says you guys were engaged to be married less than 6 months later, right?
No, it wasn't. No, because it wasn't 6 months. It was.
Be careful there. Let me warn you, about to get yourself in trouble.
It was about 8 months because we met. We really met in November. So it was quick. Like I said, I knew. And, I'm a good judge of character.
I love when you say you're right, because you're right. When you know, you know. And I only know that because what I've seen in my own parents who've been married 50 years. But when they met one November long ago, my mom had a boyfriend rather. She was dating this lawyer who drove a Porsche. My dad was unemployed and driving an old rusty pickup truck, I think.
Sure.
And they were married by the following February, right?
Okay.
And all it did was work, you know. And here we are 50 years later, and they have all these kids, and you know, it's neat. Sometimes it doesn't take a long engagement. That's really cool. And, hey, look at that. She admits a mistake too. Brittany says she stands corrected. It was 7 or 8 months. How about that?
That's more like,
and you know what? We have a witness watching the show because our mutual friend, Mandy Franks Braywick, who's been on the show, a realtor like yourself and a wonderful person, great interview, folks. If you have time on your hands, go search the engine and check out her interview. But she says she was working for you, Trent, when you met Brittany.
That's right. She sure was. Yeah. We go way back as well.
That's pretty neat. So you guys have this family. You mentioned your daughters and son earlier and kind of how they're different. Why don't we use this as a jumping off point to talk about school board stuff? Okay. Because as I understand it, you know, obviously you care about our community. And I think, like me, the viewpoint into the community, you know, at some point we kind of stop being just a guy and start being a dad first, you know, or a husband first. And you care about this community and you care about it and see through your own kids what is and what could be. And so tell us kind of what motivated you to run for school board, and let's just get into your thoughts on that and your plans and kind of what's going on that front.
The motivation was, if you want me to point to a specific school board thing that I was like, all right, I'm running, there wasn't anything. But, you know, I found out that Randy wasn't going to run. Randy Bush, the current member, he told me in February that he probably wasn't going to run. And I started thinking about it, and I was so busy with work at that point. Hurricane cleanup, you know, I had a lot to take care of at that time. And, but I started thinking, I was like, man, this is kind of everything I've done would make me a good school board member, I think. And part of that was the management history, the business ownership, having the kids in school, having the educational background. I went to Louisiana Resource Center for Educators and went through the certification program there. That was kind of what my passion was. I wanted to teach growing up. And I did take that step. I took the praxis test that the teachers take. And again, it's like when you run a business, whether it be mine or that restaurant, you learn a lot about budgeting, bottom lines, like what's smart spending, what's not, where what do you have to do to turn a profit? How do you make adjustments when things get tight, when money gets tight? And in the seafood industry, money gets tight. Seafood is a delicacy.
I bet.
And so we had to figure out ways to save money without disrupting the customer experience year after year after year. And so when you do that kind of thinking and searching, it sets you up well to be able to budget. And I know this is a much larger budget by 100 times.
Yeah, but you still have that variable system, you know. I mean, in the seafood business, you've got all these bills piling up managing a restaurant, but you don't know, you know, going in what the seafood's going to cost, you know.
Right.
Things can affect all, you know, its markets. And now you're with the school board, and look, we hope right now everybody's buying a lot for Christmas, and
Right.
you know, you guys are making tax dollars, but by the time you find out how much you made, if you haven't planned properly, it's too late. So
Yeah.
you're right. Those skills should serve you well in the next chapter of life.
Right. I think so too. And I'm glad you brought that up. While we got if anybody's listening, I think people are, spend your money here. Try not to go to Sam's and Covington, Livingston. We need the tax base. I mean, every dollar you spend here, it's only a penny, but a lot of dollars are spent, and that's the penny, a half penny rather, goes to the teachers directly. The more we get for that, the more we can give them, you know.
And not only does that money go, you know, where we need it, to teachers and students, you know, but also a dollar spent locally is going to stay in the community. I just started coaching basketball last week at Ponchatoula Youth Basketball. And what you notice are all the sponsors out there are local businesses. You know, it might be a little law firm like mine, or an auto mechanic over here, or a flower shop over there, but it's not a bunch of big national, you know, box stores based out of St. Tammany Parish that are doing it. Right. So when you spend local, it finds its way back into the local economy in a really important way. Mandy's got another great comment here I want to share. She says you're going to do great things on the school board, and she can't begin to say how proud she is of you and Brittany. Y'all are just great family and great people.
Oh, thank you. We likewise too.
What do they say? It takes one to know one, right?
That's right.
Mandy comes from a great family.
Yes.
Her parents, her brother, everybody's, you know, they and I see her all the time serving in the little, you know, community where my kid's in school at St. Joseph. You know, she's not only a good mom, a good realtor, you know, she's just a great community asset. So thank you for saying that, Mandy. You're right. And so is Trent when he throws that back at you. So the school board, what did you learn in all these months of campaigning? Because I'm sure you went into this knowing more than most people about politics, because your mother served since '96, but nobody knows it all. And school board's a different animal. And you're running in an area that's part of, you know, where you grew up, but a lot of where you didn't, right south of kind of where you grew up. And although you'd work down here and have friends down here, you know, I'm sure you learned a lot about Ponchatoula, politics, et cetera. But what are some lessons you took away from your campaign that you think are really going to stick with you in the years to come?
Gotcha. Well, we have great people in this particular district. I know people in the others, and you know, because I've lived in other districts. But man, we had a 55 or 52.5% turnout in District F.
Wow, that's super high for that race.
That's great. We have an educated voting group here. They look at qualifications. They listen. We all have the same objective. There wasn't one person I went to. They may have said, "Look, I don't have kids in school, but I know it's important, how important it is." So I learned that about this community. Now, Ponchatoula, you know, I didn't go to Ponchatoula High School. I did have two sisters that went there. You graduated with one of them, Mandy Crosby.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I had some connections with some of the town, but what I learned is we got a smart community, and we all have the same expectation. And the expectation is we're paying money for these schools. We're spending our money locally. We're paying property tax. We expect excellence, and that's what I expect too. And at the same time, we're reasonable. We understand that, you know, things don't change overnight, but we have to elect qualified individuals to get up there and do the right thing and use their past experiences and use their knowledge. And I think that my success during this campaign kind of really spoke volumes, because not being from here, they still looked at me and said, "Look, he's not somebody that we knew before, but he's done the right stuff in the past, and he deserves the job." So,
Well, and you're right in that you didn't go to school here. You didn't grow up riding your bike up and down, Pine Street like I did.
Right.
But in fairness to you, I mean, I think you might be being humble. A lot more people probably knew you than you give yourself credit for because you had been so successful in your real estate business. I mean, let's think about it. You've put a lot of people in a home, whether we're talking renters leasing, like you mentioned earlier, or buyers buying. Both, once you bought your business and became a broker, but before that as a realtor. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about that, because I would imagine that experience and that success in the private sector as a realtor really came in handy in terms of, because you mentioned people that came into Eckerd's 20 years ago that knew you, so you had that. But am I wrong? Did the real estate thing really help you? And if so, let's chat about that.
Sure, it definitely did. I mean, whenever I
how'd you get into real estate? Maybe we should start there, and then you can continue the answer.
On a whim, I decided one day, I was like, like I said, I like to work. I'm just a hard worker. I enjoy working. My wife hates it. That's one of the things she doesn't like about me. But I like working. I do. And so, and when I left Morton's, it was because I was so busy. I'd opened my new brokerage. But going back to how did I get in, I just decided I was going to try it. And and I don't know why that I've been so successful. I think it's people trust me. They know I'm not going to lie to them. I'm very brutally honest. When I see something I don't think somebody should buy, I'm like, nah, I wouldn't buy this for myself. And it's a kind of a quality that I'm like, why do I do this to myself? But I want them to go back after they buy this house, be like, man, he really helped me make the right move. We're going to use him again. And
I think you may view it as hurting you in the short run, but long term, you earn a credibility when you do that, right? And I've done that too. I've talked people out of hiring me in my injury practice through brutal honesty by shooting it straight. But I've learned 20 years in that has really been to not just the client's benefit, but my own, because eventually you get kind of a reputation as a straight shooter. And I would imagine that serves you well.
Yeah, it definitely does. And so these people come back to me and they send me their friends and family. And I started, my first couple of years, it was 2 here. And my second year, I did 7 or 8. And then all of a sudden, year 3, 4, 5, and 6, it's just doubling and tripling. And to where I'm like, this is not bragging, because I'm going to give all the glory to the Lord. But like, I'm gonna finish possibly first in Tangipahoa Parish this year. And
wow, that's really saying so. Because we have some amazing realtors in this parish. I mean, competition is stiff. We have for a long time now been one of the fastest growing parishes, and with that comes intense competition in real estate. So, congratulations, Trent. That says a lot.
Now, so Jason Lipscomb and Will Frederick are gonna be like, hold up, son. But I got some stuff yet to close. They are ahead of me right now. But I'm by myself too. And now my agents, they have their own data, and they're all doing great too.
That's great.
But I don't share. We don't share data and stuff like that. So what my final numbers are stuff that I was able to do, and I did it during a campaign. When I tell you, I campaigned between calling and researching probably 6 to 8 hours a day. So I like to work, and so the campaign's done, and I left the restaurant after 22 years, so now I got real estate school board. And so that's what I'm
with campaigning and all that, that's like selling with an arm tied behind you, whatever, it's that's tough.
It was a tough time, but
it kind of handcuffed you a bit, I bet.
It did a little bit, but we got, the rate it just was like, again, I give the glory to the Lord on everything that I do, but the rate during my campaign, the 3 or 4 months that I had to campaign real hard, was 7.5%. So there wasn't a lot of movement anyway. So
that is good timing. Well, what are some lessons you've learned, and we can dig back to the business, at Morton's and or prior jobs, Eckerd's, whatever, selling strawberries, but particularly your job now as a realtor. What are some lessons you've learned that you wish you could share with someone getting started then? Like when you think back to your young version of yourself just getting started, or maybe to some kid who's a younger version of you now, what is it that you wish you had known at the start that you now know that you could share with somebody young looking to follow in your footsteps?
Okay. Man, something I wish I'd known. I think I could answer this maybe in a different way, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. Go any direction you like.
Thank you, thank you. I think that a big lesson that people should hear as a real estate agent, you can't go in, get your license, and expect to all of a sudden make a living. I worked for Morton's up until, like I said, 2021. So I was 8 or 9 years in to having received my license before I let it go. And and by that time I had done some other stuff to you know to get a kind of an income stream. I made some investments and things like that. So don't quit your day job. You got to get your license and start telling your friends and your family, hey, I'm licensed and I'm ready to go and I'm trained and I can help you. And then later it will start to snowball, hopefully. But you know, if you sell 2 your first year, you can't just be like, well, I sold 2 and I paid my licensing fees and I broke even. Well, just hang on with it and but keep a job. Like, you can do 2 things at one time. And so that's what I think. And furthermore, it helps you to save a little bit. Maybe use what you make in this industry as a savings account. And that way, if you do have to leave your job and you want to take a leap of faith, you have a little bit of money to help you live off of instead of just giving up altogether. So, because it's not an easy market to break into. We have a lot of wonderful professionals out there.
That's great advice, and you're spot on for real estate, but it also applies to other professions too. Mine's a good example. You could be the greatest injury lawyer in the world, but if you start your practice today, it's going to be a long time till you make a living. Part of it is the shelf life of these cases. They average over a year long, and you're spending money. But like you said, there's a snowball effect. Before you can get kind of a healthy base of clients, you need to have a list of past clients that are happy with you, that are singing your praises, that are saying, this guy's a straight shooter. You can trust him. He works hard, etc. So that's great advice. What have I not asked you about that you'd like to talk about today? Whether it's plans for the school board, something about your business, your family. I promised I'd get you out of here on time, back to your family. What's on your mind, your heart? Anything else you'd like to chat about?
No, I'll say a couple of things. I do have, I have 5 sisters, so I'm the only boy, but it taught me patience and again, But and I think
you probably brushed your teeth outside with a hose or something. No bathroom time growing up with 5 sisters.
Right, that's pretty much right. Because there was so much of a gap. My oldest sister was almost 10 years older than me. And my youngest one is I was 16 when she was born. So my mom jokingly says she brought kids to school for like 45 years. She really did. So she never had a gap. Like she was like, I'm tired of bringing kids to school. I'm doing it for 40 plus years. But I was like, well, you had a kid at 42. But anyways, I hope that that I can make a difference. I think there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I'm about to get my feet wet. Starting January 10th is the swearing in date. But I just really want to say this. I think we have a really good board. 6 people went in unopposed. And we had Miss Rose Dominguez has gone back in. Of course, I could be the only newcomer. We have one more race to settle this Saturday between Miss Simmons and Mr. Piazza. And it's either going to be 1 rookie or 2. And so we'll see what happens with that. Nevertheless, I think we're going to have a great board. And I have to give some kudos. I was hoping this would happen. Miss Stilly, she's had some trying times. We all dealt with COVID nationwide, but then before that, she kind of ended the desegregation case or got us in probation. Before that, she ended, they had that cyber attack. And then we're kind of getting our bearings straight.
She's overcome some high hurdles.
Yeah, that's right. You get bearings back straight after COVID, and the Lord throws us a major disaster with the Hurricane Ida. And so this kind of last year was even with Hurricane Ida being in the middle of last year, we still improved on the scores. So now this year, I'm expecting greatness because we haven't had a catastrophe, and God forbid we have one, because I think this is our first full year, and so I think the board and the people here are expecting great things to happen, and we'll of course see those results coming up soon. But I feel like we have a lot of good things we can do. I think we need to fine tune some discipline and safety issues that I've talked about throughout the campaign. I'd love to see our teachers. I've said this a million times. Teachers and employees they're the front line. They're so incredibly valuable, and I'd love to see them get paid more. And they're asking to do
absolutely.
more right now too. They're asking to work a little harder and spend a little more time at work. So let's get them compensated, and let's do so in a way that we don't have to ask for a tax increase, that we can find some ways to save money to pass that along to them.
Well, that's music to my ears. As a guy whose wife works in the school system, you know, you're right about all that stuff, and particularly the safety part of things, because we live in frightening times, and you know, we can never overinvest in safety or be too careful, cautious, and prepared. So I tell you what we're going to do here, if you don't mind. We'll close out because again, I've enjoyed this. We could go on another hour, and I'd be happy with it. But both of our wives might not. But I will say here, you got a couple comments here. Trish says that you were her BFF growing up.
That's right.
But the comment I really want a response to here, we're going to got the hot seat comment. Kaylee says, tell them about your favorite sister.
Oh, well, I'll tell
you know, in the military, one might call that a landmine, right? You might not want to touch that.
That's right. Oh, man.
Oh, no, Kaylee, we've run out of time. We can't get him to tell us.
No, we can't. Sorry, time's out.
Yeah. Well, folks, thank you for watching, for listening. Trent, thank you so much for your valuable time. It's been a blast. To everyone watching or listening at home, we thank you. We'll be back here next week and with Ponchatoula Live. Have a great week.